side of things. And the way that I sort of put this across is for me, it's like a two-sided coin. On one side, you've got the economy, and on the other side, it's welfare. So I just wanted to pick up here just a couple of quick things. One is around sort of the claimant count and how we can sort of see the impact that we've actually had from COVID and what it's actually doing to these figures. And I would just like to say early on, there's sort of a lot of these figures have been pulled together from our colleagues within the local economic partnership and other areas, because they sort of pull together this data. And I think actually just touching on that a little bit, I think we're all very aware just how important data actually is, because it really helps to sort of pull a picture together and then also enables us to sort of target activity and intervention. So one of the things I just wanted to pick up in particular on this one is, even though we're sort of mapping the claimant count and keeping an eye on it, it's interesting, and it surprised me that apparently, and this is only an estimate, it's estimated that only about 55% of those that are unemployed in Bucks actually claim benefits. So this is just an estimate, and it's just based on sort of different levels of intelligence. But that in itself is quite an interesting one, in terms of sort of the impact that is going to be felt by some of the individuals that are actually losing their jobs potentially, either currently or in the future. Do you want to move on, Helen, if that's okay? I think this is the one that we're all waiting with a bit of bated breath around, which is the furlough situation. So interestingly, at the moment, we are aware that job postings are going up, and we're aware in certain areas, you know, there's almost more of a demand than a supply in terms of resources to sort of fill those jobs, or people to fill those jobs. But this is because it's being sort of kept artificially, or it being kept in an artificial situation where an awful lot of people are still actually furloughed. And I think the concern here, back in, I think, sort of end of February, sort of when we've got the last sort of stats for this, you know, over 38,000 people were actually furloughed. We are aware that as the government starts to pull away the furlough support, that will start to have quite an impact. And I think we're all getting ready, or trying to get ready, for quite what the picture might look like in September. So I think this is just a bit of the backdrop, really, that we're all aware of. And we're aware that people are struggling now, but we're also concerned about what that demand might look like as, unfortunately, more job losses may occur into the future. Next one. This is just touching again on the job posting side of things. I think it has been acknowledged that economic inactivity is actually starting to rise, and we've got, as you'll see on sort of the sort of sideways bar chart, if you want to call it that, you know, we are having sort of sectors of the economy that are getting more profoundly impacted in relation to the aftermath of COVID. And I think we need to be very cognizant of that in terms of the support and the challenges some of those individuals will have that are currently sort of employed within those sectors. So as I say, that was just to give a bit of a backdrop, I guess, in terms of the context, in terms of what we're all sort of operating within. Next one. So what I've tried to do here is to sort of just try and pull together, as I say, a lot of people have heard about the Helping Hand team and the Helping Hand initiatives, and it was really to just go around to sort of highlight that, yes, absolutely, we are there to sort of help support those that are vulnerable, those that need additional support, and we within the community support team have local emergency support as well, which has been part of the organisation, or the legacy organisation, for a good number of years. So there is an element that we're there to sort of try and help navigate, try and help provide direct support where required. But I think the other couple of things that are interesting to just flag here is, in addition to that, we also within the team have responsibility for the cohort who last year were asked to shield, which is the clinically extremely vulnerable cohort, and we received significant monies from government to sort of support that cohort, and I think it's quite an interesting sort of project to develop, really, because as we start to see all the restrictions be removed, this cohort has been shielding up until the end of March for a considerable period of time. And I think part of the concern now is sort of what moving back into the big bad world might actually look like, and you know, sort of the challenges that they may face in terms of doing that. So we have members of the team that actually are working with public health in terms of how we can actually support those going forward. And to just give you a metric, there's over 30,000 people that were actually on our shielding list and are still monitored as the clinically extremely vulnerable cohort. The other one that I just wanted to draw attention to is around the practical support for self-isolation. And again, this is another project that we receive funding for from government to try and help those that are self-isolating, taking particular care to those that are either physically vulnerable or those that are financially vulnerable, to ensure that they are able to self-isolate and have got the help and support to enable them to do that. So as I say, you'll start to see more of the terminology of the community support team. However, the Helping Hand initiative, which has been there and will continue, has primarily been there to sort of help deliver against, well, not against, sorry, be able to deliver the schemes that we've been able to support, utilising the winter grant scheme and the local support grant scheme that I'll come on to in a second. Next one, Helen. Again, these slides really, I know they're quite busy, and we do regularly report internally in terms of the numbers. All I really wanted to sort of draw your attention to here, so this is for the local emergency support team, going back from sort of last May up to sort of June, and what you'll start to see, certainly sort of over the last few weeks or so, we're really starting to see the numbers increasing that are coming through to our local emergency support team. And I think it's important to just highlight that team works sort of hand in glove with the Helping Hand team to sort of ensure that we can provide as a holistic support offering as possible and help direct people to where support may be available to them, which isn't all just about us providing that direct support, but actually reaching out into the voluntary sector. Next one. This one just helps because it gives us some analysis of some of the queries that actually come in to the local emergency support team. And as you can see, it's sort of a variety of sort of requests that come in. The team is there actually to help sort of almost in like a crisis, and it's there to sort of provide some short-term support to sort of a vulnerable cohort, and there's a particular sort of a process and framework and an approach to sort of support them. If you move on to the next one, Helen, if that's okay. I think when we look at these combined, and I try to just highlight it in yellow on this one, and then I'll refer to the other elements, both with the local emergency support team and the Helping Hand team, when we've sort of like added together the numbers, we have probably provided, since sort of November, over 500 or managed, should I say, over 500 food support requests, which sort of, you know, it isn't an insignificant number, and certainly has been something that we've sort of seen on the rise. And obviously we work really closely sort of with food bank colleagues and community sort of groups in terms of how we can actually provide that support to those individuals. I think the other thing to sort of just flag, the Helping Hand team as is didn't exist last year, and yet from when it sort of started to operate back in November time, you know, we have now sort of supported over 1,000 residents that have actually come to us for support, and I think that was one of the reasons why it's been acknowledged that to provide continuation of this team, just whilst we try and understand what impact there will be following on from COVID, because it provides a slightly different offer to the local emergency support team. You'll see on there, and I'm not going to go in detail, but you'll certainly see on there, we provide sort of support both directly, but then also working with a number of voluntary sector organisations, and have been able to successfully work with national schemes and local schemes to actually ensure residents receive the support that is available to them. And sometimes it is just helping that navigation. There's help and support that's out there. It's just residents being able to find the way to what is required. Next one, Helen. I think the two key bits I wanted to sort of just pick up, or the two key themes here, and this probably isn't appropriate labeling, it's a bit difficult to sort of articulate this, but I think we have the vulnerable cohort that we have been aware of. We know there's pockets of vulnerability, and there's been infrastructure there to support it. I think what we're now starting to see, and it's in the national press and local press, that cohort themselves have been sort of disproportionately impacted in relation to COVID, but we're now starting to see what we've sort of termed new vulnerable. So these are sort of families that, or individuals that may have been quite comfortable previously, but are now finding themselves in challenging situations for a number of different reasons, whether it's sort of health impacts of COVID, whether it's job losses. And I think what we now need to do is sort of understand what is the appropriate infrastructure or framework of support for both of these cohorts. I think one of the challenging things for the new vulnerable is they've never been in this situation before, so they may be very able to navigate systems, but they may be a bit slow in coming forward sometimes, thinking, oh well, maybe I will just in a month's time I may have got a job, etc., etc. And we're starting to see this cohort actually presenting quite late, after they've got themselves into some quite significant debt and sort of in quite a sort of a challenging situation. Next one, Helen. I think this is just to sort of wrap up, and then I'll go on to the winter grant side of things and the food side of things. I think I've touched on a few of these already, but sort of it's all around intelligence and being able to target support. The Financial Insecurity Partnership, which is now starting to gather quite a pace, working with a number of key stakeholders, and working with, included in that, the housing associations, citizens advice, food bank representatives, DWP. So I think it's really important that we all sort of come together. And I think some of the work that's going on in that space, as well as some of the really good stuff that's going on within the food partnership, as we will all see, there's quite a lot of overlap sometimes, and it's just making sure that that overlap is effectively managed. Colleagues, both within and sort of within the organisation and external, sorry Helen, I was just going to cover one quick thing back if that's all right, is around the whole economic recovery piece, because that absolutely is a key thing. We need to get the economy back on its feet really quickly to enable those jobs to be available. And I think one thing I hear from all colleagues that are involved in this, all of us have got a concern around developing a dependency culture. So I think that's one thing that we're all very aware of. Sorry, next one, Helen. So this is really just to sort of focus on, as you'll be aware, and you may have heard it called a couple of different things. So it started off being called the COVID Winter Support Grant, and then more recently, because it has been extended a few times, because we're well out of winter now, it's now become the Local Support Grant. But the framework of the grant, which specifically is there to support primarily vulnerable families with food and warmth support, has provided significant funds to the authority, which in turn has then enabled us to provide support out into the voluntary sector. Next one, Helen. I sort of pushed my ability a little bit here to just try and give a representation of sort of at a high level where the award or the grant award, where and how we have used it. And rather than make it too busy, I think what you'll see from here is we've received just under 2.5 million. So that is new money into the authority. Some of this award has been provided, let's just say, with really short time frames. So it's sort of come to us in about 3 or 4 instalments. Each instalment we didn't know was going to happen. Yes, we were delighted we got the extension and the extra funding, but it does come with it sort of challenges in terms of being able to spend it within the tight framework that they've provided to us to use. But as you can see, a primary use of these monies is actually to have provided holiday food support to vulnerable families, and we have focused on those families whose children receive free school meal support or early year support. However, I'm quite pleased to say that both in terms of the direct support that we've provided, with additional funds being provided both to the Helping Hand team and the local emergency support team, we've also been able to provide a significant slice of the pie into the voluntary sector. And Helen touched on it at the beginning around the hot meal project is one of those projects that we've actually been able to collaboratively fund with other VCS sort of organisations in order to sort of us have schemes on the ground within the community helping those that need it most. Next one. I'm going to sort of quickly flip through these, but it's really, I guess, just to show you the chapters in which we've actually managed the winter grant, as it were. And it's a little bit of a sort of a repeat from the sort of the pie chart, but just to sort of give you sort of a flavour of some of the work that we've actually been able to sort of support through sort of the monies that we've received. So the first tranche was the December to mid-April. Significant monies, and we've been able to sort of, as I say, sort of provide significant support out during the holiday periods. Government are at great pains to say this is not holiday free school meal support, because obviously there's a lot of work going on, you know, the Marcus Rashford campaign and what have you. This is sort of us being able to provide some additional support to those families that need it most during that period of time. Next one, Helen. We then sort of lastminute.com got an extension, a couple of months extension for April through to June, and the majority of this, as you can see, was actually used to sort of support, provide support during the May half term. So I'm pleased to say that up until now, every holiday period, we have been able to provide the equivalent of £15 per child per week during these holiday periods, and actually during Easter we were able to provide some additional support on top of that as well. Next one, Helen. This is the one that's only just been announced, and it caused quite a lot of challenges with a number of local authorities, because and I'll come on to it in the next slide in a second, but we certainly use the vehicle of schools to provide this support out to families because they've got the most up-to-date contact details for families. So we're in the process of sort of developing what we're going to do. However, the biggest chunk of this money will be used to sort of provide the digital food vouchers for the summer period. The families will receive £70 voucher at the start of that holiday period, and that money is to be used to sort of support them during the summer. We haven't been able to do the £15 per child per week. However, and my colleague Helen Fincher will talk about more in a minute, there is another scheme that is operating in parallel with this, which should mean that there is that support there. I think the key thing to pick up from here, just quickly, because I'm aware that I'm sort of running over, there's currently over 11,000 children that receive free school meal support and early years support, and to date we've been able to provide over 1.8 million to those families, and we do work sort of closely with education. Next one, Helen. What I'll do with these, so these will be able to come out in sort of the slide pack when stuff gets sent out sort of following this meeting. I think the reason for these stories, as we call it, is really to just sort of support the comment I made earlier in the presentation regarding, you know, as you will all know, people come from a variety of different backgrounds and contexts in terms of why it is they need support. The only one thing I would say is what we find, and I'm sure you will find it too, sometimes people knock on our door around food support or fuel support, and then the conversation starts. And then, as you'll see when you get to see these stories when it comes out, there is more support that is required, and it is just the request for that food support that starts to open the door to really understand what that individual or that family might need. So apologies for going over a little bit. It was a bit of sort of a lot to sort of try and cram in, so hopefully you will have found that useful.
Thank you very much, Jill. A really comprehensive presentation. So hopefully that's been useful to attendees to understand the sort of scale and the scope of the projects that have been funded with this new central government money. We are a little behind time, so I'd like to invite our next speaker to present now. So our next speaker is Helen Fincher, again from Buckinghamshire Council, and she's going to talk to us about the holiday scheme, which is known as HAF.
Hi everyone. Helen, are you going to share the slides for me? Brilliant. Hi everyone. So just a very quick update on the HAF programme. The HAF programme stands for Holiday Activities and Food, and what it delivers really. So if you can move on, Helen, thank you. Thank you. It's targeted to much the same audience actually as the local support that Jill's team delivers. It's targeted to school-aged children aged 5 to 16 who receive benefits-related free school meals. So that is the cohort that DFE have allotted this funding for. And the scheme provides these eligible children with holiday activities that are enriching their physical, and it also provides a hot meal. And this support is delivered through holiday clubs or holiday provision, holiday sessions, whatever they look like. It's really designed to eliminate some of those inequalities that exist with these families and their peers. So in terms of the holiday experience that these children can and do receive, and trying to level that playing field a bit, specifically around the lack of opportunities and the so-called holiday hunger instances, so that actually these children have a good holiday experience. So it's designed to tackle these issues and achieve these outcomes that have been set out by the DFE. So it's about eating more healthily, being more active in the holidays, taking part in activities that are enriching, gives them a chance to do new things, have a better knowledge of health and nutrition by informal learning around that, be more socially active and have chance to hang out and relax with others, make new friends, and also for their wider family members to get informal signposting to whatever service or support or advice they might need. If you could move on, Helen, please. So the programme is delivered via funding that is allotted to every local authority. In previous years, the HAF programme nationally has been running with various pilot areas, and Buckinghamshire was not in that cohort of authorities in the last 2 to 3 years. So in 2021, the DFE provided funding for every single local authority. So some local authorities have been delivering HAF for 2 to 3 years, or at least 1 year, and others like ourselves are very new to it. So it's new for us this year. We delivered an Easter programme which comprised of mostly remote support for activities and food, with some limited face-to-face holiday club provision as well. For summer, we are stepping up that programme and building on that to deliver a much more broad, county-wide, face-to-face holiday activity club scheme that will operate throughout Buckinghamshire. It's delivered so the provision set out by DFE is that we must deliver at least 4 weeks provision across the summer holidays and at least 1 week at Christmas, and how that is actually delivered is a little bit fluid. So you can go over 4 weeks, but each child should receive, if they want it, 4 weeks of provision. DFE do recommend this sort of 4x4 model. So sessions or clubs that last at least 4 hours every day, that they run at least 4 days a week, and that they run for at least 4 weeks. You can have a sort of mixed approach to that. So some of our sessions planned for the summer will be longer than 4 hours. They'll run for more than 4 days a week, and they'll run for more than 4 weeks. So but that would be the sort of ideal scenario that DfE would like to see. And I think to just run through what for our providers, what they're delivering for us, because we're not delivering this directly. We've been through a process whereby we've had invited some applications from potential providers, and we have awarded those providers to deliver for us across the summer holidays via these holiday clubs. And what we're asking providers to ensure that they build into their offer is delivering good quality holiday activities and good quality food. And we've asked that every session has a hot meal available for every child, and that meal is healthy and hot, and that it meets the school food standards. We're asking providers to deliver a range of activities that are both physical and enriching, and that could be one activity, could be both of those things, but many providers are delivering some physical activities, whatever that looks like, sport, kayaking, keep fit, circuit training, could be anything and everything, I guess. And also providers are delivering enriching activities, and again that could be anything and everything from performing arts to photography, leadership skills, coding, video production. I mean, the list goes on really. But it's primarily for children in the eligible cohort to have fun, build some skills, yes, and also relax, socialise, meet others, have a good time, have a good holiday experience, and at the same time get a healthy hot meal at every session they attend. We are asking our providers to build in somehow some informal nutritional learning, and again that can look very different depending on what the age group is and the activities that are happening in the rest of the session. And we're also asking providers to work with us to signpost when needed either the child or young person or their wider family members to any local support or other advice and information that they might need about anything really. So that's what a sort of session will comprise of. But for the children and young people that attend, it's about having fun and getting a good hot meal every day. If you could move on, Helen, please. And just finally, so I suppose just I should say that we're building our programme for summer. We're moving very quickly towards delivery. We've got a good group of HAF providers on board with us for the summer holidays. It's definitely being delivered at pace, so it's an evolving programme, shall we say, but it's looking really good. We've got a great range of activities from sort of Buckingham to Burnham for ages 5 to 16, so no matter what children are into or like to do, I'm sure there's something for everyone in that eligible group. We've got our web pages up and running, and you can see them there. That's where we're pointing all of our families to, so they can read about the HAF programme, they can see what's on offer, see what the eligibility is, as they do need to be eligible to be able to access these holiday clubs. And they can see what holiday activities are on offer, they can choose, and then they can book on directly for their children with the providers. And that online activity directory that sets out who's delivering what and where, that's going to be continually updated as we move through the summer with a sort of live kind of listing of what's available and anything that's come on that's new. And then it's just to say that in the slide pack there is the team's email address, so you can always get in touch if you want to know anything further about HAF. And with that, I'll hand back to Helen.
Thank you very much, Helen. So I think Helen has to leave fairly promptly, but hopefully we'll still be able to answer any questions you have. So do start popping any questions that you have for our speakers in the chat. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're having a panel Q&A after each of the speakers has presented. So our next speaker this afternoon is Sally Hone, who is a public health principal at Buckinghamshire Council, and she's kindly going to tell us about the community growing programmes that public health are getting underway.
Thank you, Helen. Are you sharing the slides, or do you want me to?
If you would like to, then you can write.
I'm not allowed to.
If you try now, it should allow.
There we go. Right, which ones is it? Okay. Lovely. Okay. Right, I'm just turning my video off because I'm going to show a video and my internet's being dodgy, so it's just hopefully nothing cuts out. So thank you. I'm Sally Hone. I'm from Buckinghamshire Council. I'm a public health practitioner working on the healthy weight and the food poverty agenda. And I'm just going to give you a very quick update on community growing projects that we're delivering across the county. And they've got the overall aim is to create resilient communities in terms of access to fresh produce and also addressing food poverty. So I'm going to start with our Grow to Give project. Apologies to those who've listened to probably this presentation a few times. So Grow to Give is all about creating a local sustainable food source. It's a very basic idea of engaging local food growers on allotment sites or home growers and encouraging them to actually donate surplus produce to local food banks and community fridges. It was founded by Justine Hamer and Sheila Bees, who I'm sure many of you will know, and it's focused on the High Wycombe and the Aylesbury areas. All produce that's actually donated is collected at a central collection point at the allotment, and it's collected by one of the providers or by a volunteer and taken to the local food banks to be actually distributed. Like I say, the project started by Justine and Sheila, and it ran in 2019-20, and during that growing season they donated 1.5 tonnes of produce, and that came from 7 original allotment sites. And Public Health, in collaboration with Feedback Global and the council waste team, have funded the development and the expansion of the actual programme. We're aiming for this growing season to donate 2.5 tonnes to the food banks. I'm just going to try, let's see if this will work, in actually sharing. If I can get this to work. No, what I'll do is I'll leave the video because it'll probably make me run over anyway. There's a nice video about the actual Grow to Give programme in my slides. It's on YouTube, so feel free to access and go and have a look at that. Just to give you an idea of some of the achievements to date, we were looking to establish 6 new sites. We've got 3 new sites established at Haddenham, Knotty Green and Little Kings Hill, and we're currently onboarding a further 3 sites at Maids Morton, Berryfield and Watermead allotments. And we're also currently exploring opportunities to work with Southcourt Parish Baptist Church, Buckingham Free Meals and Berryfields Parish Council as recipients of the actual produce to go into their food parcels. And additionally, Berryfield Parish Council have 2 allotment sites that they're actually looking to sign up to the scheme. So it's looking like Justine and Sheila will surpass their 6 new allotment sites for the year. We've also got a project website. On this website, it has a wealth of resources, sort of how-to guides, case studies, areas of success, active Facebook pages. There's all the resources that are actually needed for wider areas outside of the project, so other areas of the council to be able to put these types of projects into place, and both Sheila and Justine are there to be able to offer hints and tips as well. They've developed 20 seasonal, very simple nutritional cards to support people who receive the produce from the allotments, and these are associated, well, many of them are associated with YouTube videos which will actually take people through the actual cooking and the actual process of developing the lovely recipes. And they've also delivered masterclasses for the allotment holders as well, so that we ensure that the communities are able to grow more and make the most out of their actual growing sites. Just to give you an idea of some of the resources, so this is one of the recipe cards, nice and colourful, clear instructions, and these are actually available on the website, on the Grow to Give website. They're free to download, and any stakeholders can use them across the county. That's no problems at all, so please go on the website and do that. This is an example of a resource which is there to help wider areas implement the Grow to Give scheme and starting up their own scheme in their own local area. And this has been distributed to all parish councils and town councils to send to their allotment holders to get things up and running. And then this is just an example of some posters and things which are put up around the area. So that's one of the community growing projects. The second project we've been running, run it as a pilot, is veggies and containers. And this is all about encouraging families to try their hand at growing their own food, regardless of the space that they actually have available, showing how easy it is to grow and understand the basics around food growing. It's been rolled out across 3 localities with food banks and community fridge users through Restore Hope, Aylesbury Vineyard and the Women's Cultural Arena as well. And the families could basically choose one of 3 boxes linked according to the space that they had actually available. So we had windowsill boxes, balcony boxes and garden boxes. And to date, we had 48 people sign up for the windowsills, 51 for balconies, and 114 families signed up for the garden boxes, which was fantastic. We thought more would go for the balcony and the windowsill boxes, but a lot have taken on the garden boxes. We're following up all the growers in August to find out what they've actually achieved, what produce they've actually grown. So this is a watch this space, and we'll hopefully have some lovely photos of produce which have been grown. Some more updates to come on that one. And the final project that Public Health are doing is a community growing project around Grow It, called Grow It, Cook It, Eat It. The aim is to create community-led growing sites supported by expert gardeners during the first year. And these expert gardeners have the skills and the experience and the knowledge in setting up community growing sites, so we're able to create these sustainable areas. The vision is that by year 2 that the communities take ownership and drive them forward, overseen by an expert gardener. So the expert gardener takes a step back. So we currently have 4 sites starting at the moment. So we have one in High Wycombe at the Desborough Road allotments, one in Aylesbury at the Storehouse at the Vineyard, we've got one in Chesham at Waterside Academy School, and another one in High Wycombe at Micklefield Library. And then over the next month or so, we've got another 3 sites due to commence, one in Iver at the Evesham Centre, Aylesbury at Prebendal Farm, and then also one in Buckingham at a Vale of Aylesbury Housing Trust site at North End Court. So all details about the project can be found on the council's health and wellbeing website. It's got a wealth of resources, training opportunities, diaries of progress of what's happening at each of the sites. And there's lots of resources there for wider communities who want to set up their own community growing sites to use to support them in their way. I think what's been great with this project is actually seeing the support from wider stakeholders coming forward, because we have had a few barriers in our way along the way. So Bucks Adult Learning have been putting on bite-sized training sessions for the communities, and these are open to people, not only volunteers working on the sites, but they're open to the community wide, and it's all about developing growing skills. So it could be anything from pest control through to seed saving. And like I say, they're free of charge for communities to get involved with, and all details are on the website. Aylesbury Garden Town, they've helped us with lots of with the marketing materials and helping develop them. Aylesbury Vineyard have had the probation service going in to actually clear the site, and we've had the Chiltern Society offering to help clear the Chesham site as well. So it's nice to see. What's great is that partnership working in collaboration and people coming together. So when we've hit a barrier, that barrier has just been quickly overcome. To give you an idea of some of the sites that we have. Okay, so this is our Aylesbury Vineyard site. This is the initial site, not the prettiest. So people taking part in this one, it's surrounded by social housing, and also we're encouraging people who've taken part in the Veggies and Containers project to get involved. This is it at the current state. So they've moving the fence back. It's been delayed a little bit because they had a few drainage issues. They're sort of moving the fencing back to create a larger growing site. They've had donations of a shed and tools, all been nicely cleared. And the volunteers have been out the back growing their vegetables initially, so that when it has got the raised beds fully in place, that they can put everything into those straight away. This one was probably our biggest challenge at Waterside School. This site is owned by the school, but it hasn't been used for years and years and years. It's not actually on the school site, so it's just been left. It's the size of probably 2 football pitches. But this is, again, progress was actually slow on this one because residents complained because it was their dog walking field, so they didn't want it changed into a community growing site. So we had a bit of resistance from residents, but that's all now been resolved. And we've had school maintenance in, cleared it all out. We've got raised beds going in. The community has been growing all their plants in pots at the moment, so hopefully we'll be able to transplant those into the raised beds very soon. Desborough Road, this is the one which is furthest on. It's on an actual allotment site, but it hadn't been actively used for a while, and they've had volunteers in helping to clear it. And as you can see, these are from the last month. It's great to see that there's plants in and they're starting to grow some of their veggies as well, and they're starting to appear through. And then the 3 sites we have ready to go. This is Micklefield Library. We've actually secured this one, as you can see, in the winter because there's snow on the ground. So we're hoping to get that one up and going very soon. This is the Evenham Centre. It was a community growing site back in its day, so we just want to bring that one back to life. And then we've also got North End Court in Buckingham as well. So then, just to finish, another element of this project is a cooking element. We're currently exploring existing cooking projects across the county, what's currently happening, so we don't want to duplicate efforts that are already going on. So we're speaking to stakeholders regarding their thoughts, how it should be delivered, and areas of best practice across the country, not just locally, so that we can develop a programme that fits the needs of the community and create a sustainable change rather than just a 6-week standard cooking project. Our initial thoughts is that we're going to take a train the trainer type approach and training community members to be able to go directly into their communities and deliver a set number of programmes over a 2-year period, and providing them with all the resources needed. But that's all to be confirmed hopefully very soon. Okay, so that's a whistle-stop tour of everything that we're doing at the moment. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sally. There's certainly a lot going on, and hopefully there are some ideas there that people can tap into and explore with you after today's meeting. Hopefully we'll get some more organisations involved across the county. So now on to our next and final speaker, Peter Maddox. You've been waiting very patiently. You're our final speaker this afternoon, representing the Buckinghamshire Food Partnership. And I will start sharing your slides. Bear with me just a second. Can you now see those slides on screen?
Yes, we can. But perhaps in slideshow would be good. Oh, that's it. Super.
There we are.
Thank you. Thank you, Helen. And first, thanks to you and Clare Foundation for inviting me today to talk about Buckinghamshire Food Partnership. And I guess I'm new on the block, and just say a little bit about me, because I'm actually really interested in what's going on in food around Bucks. I spent many years working for a national charity called WRAP, the Waste to Resources Action Programme, where I was very active in food waste, and also in the redistribution of food, surplus food from food manufacturing and retail across the UK to people who needed it. And so it's really exciting to be part of this partnership. It's quite new. So what I'd like to do today is really just introduce the partnership to you all, and the other aim of today for me really is to listen to you guys and find out how the partnership can really help everybody across Bucks to move forward, particularly on this food poverty agenda that is the topic of the workshop. So first of all, just a little bit about the Buckinghamshire Food Partnership is actually what we call a sustainable food place, which is a concept that was developed by Sustain, which is another big alliance, national alliance of organisations right across the UK that are working together for the whole a better system around food, farming and fishing. And sustainable food places is a concept of something really quite bottom up, where you can transform the local food system, working across all aspects of that system and solve some of the most pressing social, environmental and economic issues in relation to food. So that's what a sustainable food place is, and there are dozens across the UK now, but they've tended in the past to be based on cities and towns. So I know London was the first one that was set up, and there's some absolutely excellent food partnerships based in towns across the country. But Bucks is now a sustainable food place, and it's the first time we've looked at this as a county. So, so Sustain incubated the food partnership since 2020 last year, and have been supporting its development to become a registered charity. So it is the first county-wide approach. So in a sense, for us as Bucks, it's quite exciting and novel. Can I have the next slide, please, Helen? So just to give people a bit of history behind it. So obviously, you've already heard already about how community food projects have been active for a while, looking at local needs. But a key point was in 2020, Rothschild Foundation, as you can see from the slide, they commissioned a report to look at the opportunity that we could get from a joined up approach across the Buckinghamshire food system. So of course, as you've already heard as well, you all know that in putting that report together, there was a huge diversion onto the pandemic response, and a huge amount of work has been done in Bucks on that. But people involved did have time to find time to engage with local stakeholders, and it resulted in a report which was published in about July last year, and it's called Time for Bucks Food Partnership. It had 15 recommendations in it, and it wasn't just recommendations in relation to specific things we want to do. It's also recommendations about how we set up the partnership, how we structure it, and what kind of governance do we need. And since that time, the partnership has established a steering group with representatives right across the system. So it will include businesses, community groups, it will include government, and then we've also kind of set up a trustee board, and we recruited trustees during April-May. As chair, I'm chair of the trustee board, and we had our first meeting back in May, and our job really was to quickly get ourselves registered as a charity. And you can see right at the very bottom, pleased to be able to announce that the Bucks Food Partnership is now a charitable incorporated organisation. We are a charity, really happy with that, because that's about 2 months quicker than we expected. Nothing to do with me, to be absolutely honest, due to all the amazing work done by other people. But we've got a great foundation to move forward. And I would say that I think we've got a good group of trustees who can help with the governance and strategy of the new partnership. Okay, so next slide, please. So just a little bit about what the partnership is, and I guess on the left of the slide there, you just see something put together by Sustain. So these are the 6, I suppose, anchors of what a sustainable food place means, and so I think it's really important to understand that there's a whole load of really good information, good practice, ideas from across the country that we can tap into. And you can see there, there's obviously a good food movement We want good, healthy food. It's all about diets. Healthy food for all is the relevant point to what we're talking about today, food poverty, food access. Food governance and strategy is all about policy. It's recognising that sometimes, local areas can't, do not have that in their ability to change things. Sometimes we have to implement policy at a national level, and that sometimes organisations like Sustain can help, push governments to at the national level to help the whole theme of good and healthy food. Things around procurement, and there's obviously about sustainable food economy and food for the planet, and that's all about the environment side of things. Food comes from the planet, food depends on nature, and so respecting the planet and respecting nature is all about having a healthy food system. So there are these themes that will help us and guide us. It's a kind of a platform to guide us as Bucks Food Partnership. But it's also more important, it's about Bucks actually doing what it needs to do for Bucks. So it's really understanding what our local county-wide challenges are and doing things that are relevant for the county and working with those stakeholders right across the county to identify those gaps and choose the right way forward. And so our mission statement that we put together as a Bucks Food Partnership is everyone is entitled to a right to food. And that is sustainable, accessible, healthy, tasty, culturally appropriate, and good for nature and the environment. So I think, this is just about, great, healthy, and food that takes care and respects the environment and from the planet from which it has come from. So that's about a bit about the partnership. I just want to say a little bit more on the next slide, Helen, if I may, about how it's set up. So it's a really busy slide, but just kind of gives you a little bit of a hierarchy. So right at the very top, just recognising there's loads of really good info that we can access as a network from all the other places that are trying to do similar things. So we've got our Bucks Food Partnership, and our job is to develop and deliver a county level sustainable food strategy. We've got a trust board, we've got a steering group. But I think the important thing I want to leave you today is that we've got the green boxes and the blue boxes. So the green boxes are the crucial thing. These are the local food groups where we've already got, and I think we've already heard about stuff that's going on in Aylesbury and Wickham. Very recently, the Chiltern and South Bucks food group was established. So this is all about the local community engagement and participation, and we want to support those. Blue boxes are very much about, well, what are the county-wide themes? And these are county-wide working groups, and we've got themes you can see there. So how can business and farming, work together across the county? We've got something on sustainable food and climate policy, food growing, schools and hospitals, and finally on the right, food poverty, which is what we're talking about today. So you can just leave I picture in your head as a kind of matrix. So you've kind of got these local initiatives remain important, lots of energy, lots of ideas there, but some of these themes are county-wide, and it's a real opportunity to, I guess, just try and think about, finding out where good practice is, where we can share resources, and where perhaps collectively as a, sorry, that's my house phone. Good. Collectively as a county, perhaps we could come together and actually do something, bigger than the sum of the parts. So that's the kind of framework that we've got, taking it forward. And finally, last but not least, very busy slide again, but this is actually all the people who are involved in the Buckinghamshire initiative around developing a local food culture. And trying to address good food and food poverty. And I think one of the important things for the discussion today and afterwards around food poverty is the very top left. Just be aware that we have joined the Food Power group. So Food Power is another kind of initiative from Sustain. So again, it's trying to get people together to try and work out how we can address things around food poverty it's great food power. I understand the idea of food power is about just giving power back to the individual, for the real people who are facing some of the challenges that we really that shouldn't be there around food poverty, and it's not just also, and I think certainly in the Bucks Food Partnership, in terms of the role we play in this area, is not just about reducing food poverty, which is actually what we've heard a lot about today, but just trying to work with everybody across the county and tackling its root causes. So there's something about understanding some of the data, which we've heard a lot about the data today. What are the root causes, and trying to work out what we can do as a county to tackle poverty and prevent it happening in the first place. So lots of aspirational stuff here. I'm going to really look forward to listening to what people have to say. We're ready to go, and the final slide just gives you a few contact details that you're welcome to use, and no doubt you'll take away from the slide pack afterwards. Thank you very much, everyone, and thanks, Helen.
Apologies there, sorry, I couldn't get to unmute myself. Thank you to each and every one of our speakers. I am conscious that we are slightly behind time because each of our speakers went a little bit over their 10 minutes. I obviously set them a tall order, and they managed to cram in a lot of really useful information that I hope has been insightful. We have got a couple of questions in the chat. In the interest of time, I will just keep to the ones that have already been posted. But if you do have additional questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, and we can take them offline after the meeting and try and get those answered for you. So if Charmaine is still with us, Charmaine had a question for Jill regarding recovery funding and the classification of clinically extremely vulnerable. Is Charmaine still with us?
I am, Helen, thanks a lot. Hi everyone. It was just a quick question to Jill. She mentioned that there was funding available for recovery, especially.
Oh, Charmaine, we've lost you. Somehow it's muted you.
Can you hear me still? Sorry, somebody's trying to call me.
Now.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so I just wanted to know if some of the funding is about educating the people about what makes them vulnerable, about their condition that makes them vulnerable, and ways that they can help themselves, really.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting question, to be perfectly honest. So the funding was sort of provided whilst they were shielding. And it was unring-fenced funding. However, it is to be used for sort of COVID health management angles. So we're trying to look at the moment in terms of putting forward proposals internally as to different projects that could be used. I'm certainly more than happy to sort of take it offline and have a further conversation with you. Nothing's off the table at the moment. And I'd certainly be interested in sort of exploring, and we're also working with reaching out to other local authorities to see what the different schemes are that they have. But yeah, really good point, really good angle, and as I say, happy to sort of follow up with you after this meeting.
Oh, thanks, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, the next question in the chat was from Mark Rosales. I don't know if you're still with us, Mark, regarding Helping Hands.
Hi, yeah, sorry, it was just a general question to Hannah and actually Jill when you mentioned Helping Hands. Does that mean that Helping Hands will now continue into 2022 as more of a bona fide body?
So the Helping Hand initiative will be part of the community support team, which the recruitment for that is live and is happening now. And it will be around for 12 months after recruitment into the team, if that helps. So yeah, that does probably mean, in a long-winded way, there will be resource available into 2022.
Fantastic. No, thanks. It's just because our referral process is kind of pivotal with Helping Hands.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question in the chat was regarding the availability of slides. So I wonder if I could just ask our speakers whether they mind me sharing their presentations. I think that you've all given me permission, but if anyone can't, obviously let me know. But I'm intending to share the presentation slides and today's recording after today's meeting. And the final question in the chat for now is from Heather. I think she raises a good comment as much as anything about the label of food poverty. Did you want to voice that, Heather?
Yeah, I hope you can hear me. This computer's not brilliant.
We can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're good, good. Yeah, my point is that we keep calling it food poverty, but there is no famine. There is plenty of food around. The problem is people can't afford it. So therefore it's not food poverty, it's poverty. And the more we call it food poverty, the more we put it in a little box where it's all safe and central and it's not part of the real problem. And then we can make food banks a normal part of society. And I manage a food bank, and my stated aim has always been to become redundant, for us not to be needed, for people to be able to buy and obtain enough food for themselves. So I really want to stop using this phrase food poverty.
I don't know if any of our panel want to comment. Peter, perhaps you want to comment there.
Yeah, so yeah, Heather, I think that is a really good point. And I know some people haven't used the word poverty, used the word food access. Maybe that might be a better phrase to use. Certainly something I think we should consider. And I mean, I think your point about there's enough food is so well made. And you know, when you actually think about the amount of food we waste to start with, I mean, when I first started in MAP, I think in the household, a third of all the food we bought got thrown away. We've now made progress, but it's now a quarter. But a quarter, 25% of everything we buy somehow ends up in the bin. And that is extraordinary, really. And then you consider the amount of waste that takes place in the manufacturing supply chain. And also, to a less, not very much, but there is still some in the supermarkets. So there is enough food, and it's how we redistribute that food and how we put the policies in place to make sure that they're in place. And I absolutely get your point about it's almost like becomes normalized. And that's where I think, you know, yes, we have to support our food banks because people are hungry today. But I think it's understanding the underlying issues and trying to prevent the need for food banks in the first place is really, really important. So I think that's something that we should be thinking about in Buckinghamshire. Hope that helps.
Helen,
Thank
can
you.
I just add to that, if that's okay? So I did make reference to it in my presentation around the work, and again, this is another sort of label, but the Financial Insecurity Partnership. We also talk about financial vulnerability, but if we just talk about it as poverty per se within Buckinghamshire, that is absolutely a big piece of work going on across a number of partners to try and understand what the current picture is, what the emerging picture is, to then look at what short, medium and long-term interventions there may be. And absolutely, as Heather said, you know, food banks really should be an immediate sticking plaster and not normalized. So certainly in all the conversations I'm having, people are very clear in that regard, and what we're trying to do is get as upstream as possible to try and sort of stop some of the challenges that families are facing. And it is part of the economic recovery piece as well. So I think it's going to be quite a multifaceted approach that we all need to work together on to understand how we can sort of improve that recovery as soon as possible.
Thank you, Jill. Did anyone else from the speaker panel want to comment there? I'll take that as a no. So we have reached the point in our programme that it's time to stretch, move, take a break from your screen and hopefully grab a drink. if it's okay with everyone, what I'm going to suggest is that we make it a 5-minute break, or as close to that as we can, in order just to make sure that we make up some time, as I know that lots of people have to leave promptly at the end of today's session. I've alluded in the chat to what comes next. So when we come back together, we'll be breaking out into discussion groups. So we've got 3 groups today. They're running in parallel, so you will have to choose which one you wish to go to. So room number 1 will be a conversation with Peter around the Bucks Food Partnership, talking a little bit more about local community engagement and participation and how you can get involved there. The second group, room number 2, will be around holiday schemes. So are you or your organisation planning a holiday scheme? Have you been awarded some HAF funding? Or would you just like to discuss how we tackle holiday hunger as a phenomenon? Join us in room 2. And the third room is around food banks and infrastructure. And do we need additional capacity? Obviously, Jill in her slides told us about sort of the facts and the figures, and the fact that furlough is coming to an end in September. So do we need to be considering how to scale to meet additional demand? Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is that we have a break. What I'll try and do is put a timer on the screen so that you have a visible cue of when to come back. But as I say, do stretch, grab a drink, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes' time. Okay, so that's our 5-minute break up. So if you are back in front of your screen, if you wouldn't mind just momentarily turning back on your camera so I know that we've got you back with us. Great. 5 minutes goes super quick, doesn't it? Good to have you all back. I know that a lot of our guests have had to leave to go to other meetings, so we are now a slightly smaller, more intimate group, and you now all fit on one screen, which is nice, so I can see most of you. So I'm now going to set up our breakout groups. As I posted in the chat, room number 1 will be the Bucks Food Partnership, which will be facilitated by Peter. Room number 2 is the holiday schemes, which will be facilitated by myself, but I've asked Jill to help me initially because I will make sure that everybody gets into the right breakout group and no one's sort of left behind floating around in cyberspace. And number 3 is the food bank and infrastructure conversation, which will be facilitated by Clare Foundation CEO Martin. So I'm going to create the rooms now. And so you will get a prompt on the screen and you will need to select the correct room. So number 1 for the Bucks Food Partnership, number 2 for the holiday schemes, or number 3 for food banks and infrastructure. So I'm opening those rooms now, and you'll need to click on the prompt on your screen. So hopefully you can now see that. Give me a thumbs up if you've got the prompt on your screen. Yeah. So you just need to select 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so I've got a couple of you left. Are you having trouble selecting the options?
Helen, I'm trying to join room 3, but I'm not sure that I'm doing the right thing.
No worries, I can put you there, not a problem at all.
Thanks.
I can't see any prompt anywhere to click.
Wendy, where would you like to go?
3, please.
Number 3, super. And Heather, maybe you'd like to join number 3 around infrastructure and food banks.
Where shall I go, Helen?
And then I've moved you, Evelyn. Cool.
I think I joined the meeting. Like I mentioned in the chat room, it would be nice to have the presentation, you know.
100%, yeah, that's fine, no problem. And if after reading it, it would be useful to just have a conversation, that yeah, more than happy to as well.
Yeah, that would be good. Quite a lot of things are going on. Yeah, if you want some food in the background, I can give you some.